Today I've got a 2009 Ford Escape with a 3.0 in it, and it has a misfire. So let's go ahead and see what's going on with this car. Okay, so here's all the codes that we have. You know what, let's back out of this. Just want to read the engine codes. Alright, we still have a lot. Alright, so we got bank 2, system lean. Cylinder 4, misfire. Bank 2 lean. Injector circuit open. Cylinder 4. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to be chasing after that one. And everything's more like repeating itself. Yep, okay, so the lean condition and the misfires are all just side effects of the injector circuit open. And since Ford does not label any of their fuse boxes, I had to pull out the owner's manual. And what I'm looking for is the fuel injector fuse. So let's see. We're on this page. See right there, fuel injectors number 23. It should be a 15 amp. So if we come back over here, 23 right there. So that's going to correspond. Get this out the way. It's going to correspond to this blue 15 amp fuse for the fuel injector. So that's the one we're going to check. And by check, I mean put our current clamp on it, not check to see if the fuse is blown, because obviously the fuse is not blown, the engine runs. Alright, so as you can see, I removed the 15 amp fuse and I put it in right here using my current clamp, and it's connected to the scope already. Alright, so here's where I'm at. Since I don't have a wiring diagram, I just have to kind of use process of elimination here, okay? So let's see if I can get a good shot of this. You can see in the yellow line, we have the current ramp for all of our injectors. And you can see on the green line, which is channel 2, there goes the connector for the fuel injectors. So I just tapped into a random fuel injector just so I could get a waveform here on the scope. And you could see, if I had my trigger correct, it would hold it, but you could see how one of those injectors lines up with one of the current ramps, okay? So what I'm going to do now is get on the scan tool, and I'm actually going to disable injector number 4 because it's the one we have the issue with. Alright, and once I hit disable, you're going to hear the engine start to stumble a little bit, but the information I'm going to get out of this is we're actually going to lose one of our current ramps down here. And what I want to do is I want this green line, our waveform on the green line, the second channel, to line up with the current ramp that is missing. So let's go ahead and turn this injector 4 off. The engine is now stumbling. And if you look at it, the wire I picked, or the fuel injector I picked, is not lining up with the spot that's missing. So it means all I have to do is go choose a different wire, and I'm just going to go through each of them until the injector number 4 lines up with that one that's missing whenever I disable it. So I hope all of that makes sense. One thing I overlooked is if we disable injector number 4, not only are we going to lose our waveform for channel 1, which is the current, we're also going to lose our waveform on channel 2 because we're disabling the injector, so there's no open time, if that makes sense. So you would just lose both of them, and that's how you would know that you're on the correct wire for that fuel injector. Now I went through all of them, and it turns out it's actually the wire that's yellow with the red stripe for fuel injector number 4. And I was using a pin to back probe all of them, but when I got to injector number 4, I must have put my back probe in that thing like good 30-40 times, and I could not get it to show up on the scope here. So I had no choice but to use a piercing probe. So you can see we now have both of them going. We have both of our signals. And now if I go into here to disable fuel injector number 4, right, you could see we lost both of them. We lost our channel B, and we lost the current ramp for fuel injector 4. That's how we know we're on the correct one. And if I activate the fuel injector again, you're gonna see it come back, and there it goes. Okay, so I went ahead and shut off the engine so it's easier for you guys to hear me. But it's been running for about 30 minutes and I can't get it to act up. It's been running perfectly fine, no misfires, no anything. I tried to put load on the engine to get, you know, the engine to rock back and forth a little bit. I tried wiggling the wire harness and nothing. I just wanted to get set up here. Okay, so we got our current clamp going for the current ramp, and I'm tapped into fuel injector number 4, and now we could keep our eye on everything, and now it's just a matter of letting the engine run until it starts to act up. Beyond that, there's nothing I can do if this thing doesn't start misfiring. So at this point, it's just a waiting game. But I hope you guys understood my process for finding which one or which wire is injector 4 without a wiring diagram. Yeah, there's ways around things, so a wiring diagram just makes it way more efficient and faster to get to what you're looking for. But there's ways around it, and this is one of them. It's just like process of elimination, okay? This is where I'm at, and this is the waveform I want to keep an eye on. And there's nothing else I can do besides just wait and see if it starts misfiring and see what's going on here. So I just talked to the owner. He said, because I still can't get it to act up, he said to let it cool off, and he more notices the misfire when the engine is cold. So let's try that. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this Ford Escape to cool off, the owner said there's a clunking coming from the rear end of the car, and I think he wants to go ahead and replace the rear shocks, which, you know, honestly, it's not a bad idea. These things are old, I'm sure they are. But his real problem is right here with the stabilizer links. Okay, look at this. First of all, I know these things are old and worn out, but at the same time, somebody was just in here. Now I don't know if it involved removing the stabilizer links, because I don't know if you guys can notice, but this lower control arm, that lower control arm, and then this like tow bar where it's an adjustable one, or I don't know what to call it. Yeah, I guess tow. It's brand new on both sides. So someone was just in here. Did they have to remove the stabilizer links to replace these parts? I don't know. But these parts, there's no reason why they should be that loose. You know, on old worn out parts, the joint gets worn out. It doesn't normally back off like this unless someone was in here messing with this, or someone just forgot to tighten it. Also, it needs the bushings. Look at these. So I'm gonna go ahead, talk to the owner, tell him what he needs, and go from there. But let's continue to wait for this engine to cool off. The car's been sitting for at least 2 hours. As you can see, we are already losing daylight out here. Let's see if we have a misfire. I don't think I feel a misfire, but let me put the scope back on it. Actually, I'm wrong. We are experiencing a misfire right now. It's just not as noticeable. So you can see in our current ramps that we are missing. So I can move this somehow. Okay, so our current ramp is missing injector number 4, and we have absolutely nothing on channel number 2. I'm gonna go ahead and wiggle the harness a little bit. Let me get my light. I tried wiggling the harness and nothing happens. I even tried tapping on the fuel injector with my long screwdriver here, and still nothing. That injector is not working. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect the scanner right now, and we can see if there's any misfires present, which I'm sure there are, because this injector is not working right now while it's cold. I'm gonna let it run without touching anything. If this injector comes to life once it gets hot, it's a done deal. It needs a new fuel injector. So I can't rely on the scan data because this thing is saying there is no misfires, but I just don't believe that. See, engine misfire currently detected. It says no. I just don't believe that. So here's where we're at. I actually moved my scale down on channel 2. and I adjusted my trigger. So this is what we're getting for fuel injector number 4. That doesn't look very good, but you can see on the current ramp we are still missing injector number 4. So again, I'm just letting this warm up, so I'm just gonna let it keep running and see what happens. Alright, so you can see injector number 4, the scanner says no error. Okay, I don't believe this. This is false information. Clearly we do not have a injector number 4. You can see we're still missing it on our current ramp. Alright, so this information coming from the scanner, I just can't trust it at this point. I don't believe it. Putting that aside for now, let's just keep an eye on this. I want to help this thing warm up a lot faster, so I'm just going to give it some throttle, nothing crazy. The longer the engine runs, the more and more my second channel is starting to look like the waveform I'm expecting to see. You see, it's starting to resemble that injector turning on and off, little by little. So of course, let's just keep waiting, let it get hot. So frustrating. I turned the camera off because I'm like, it's not gonna happen. As soon as I turned the camera off, the injector started working. It's pretty much a done deal. It's gonna get a fuel injector. Yeah, I was just standing right next to it right here, and I just saw the current ramp come back, and on our channel 2 it cleaned up a lot. And as you can see now, I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed. I got plenty of minutes of recording this thing, waiting for something to happen, waiting for that fuel injector to start working, and it didn't happen. The second I turn the camera off, boom, it happens off camera. But maybe because it's gonna sit here overnight, and tomorrow, since the engine will be cold, I'm sure that fuel injector won't be working again. Maybe I'll try to capture it tomorrow, but it's not really necessary at this point. We know the fuel injector is bad. So I'm gonna get in touch with the owner, and hopefully I get this job. So if he does, I'll bring you guys along and show you guys the fix. So it's about 2 weeks later, and we got some parts in for this Ford Escape. We got a box right here full of goodies, more parts here, and our brand new fuel injector. And I did get a Motorcraft part. So let's start digging into all of this, take it apart, and replace that fuel injector. Remove the intake manifold, and we just got it propped up here just enough so we could get clearance. You can see I put some tape right here on the intake runner so nothing falls inside of there. I've already removed all the bolts holding down the fuel rail, but before we actually go ahead and get it out, I'm gonna go ahead and use some compressed air to knock out any junk that's sitting down in this valley right here, so that when we pull out the fuel injectors, we try to minimize the amount of junk that falls into them. Alright, so I got the fuel injector off of the car, and isn't this the cutest little thing you've ever seen? So cute. I just want to make like a tiny little bed for it, with a tiny little pillow and a little blanket, you know, something like. Look how cute. That's cute, right? You know that's cute. Anyway, so we know the fuel injector was misfiring whenever it's cold, okay? And right now the fuel injector is cold. Obviously it took time to take it all apart. So if we are going to see a difference in resistance, it would be right now while it's cold. Okay, so here's the new fuel injector, and I've already got my leads connected to it. All I have to do is touch the red one to the red one. I can't clamp it on because this clamp is broken, but you can see on the new one we got about 12.1 ohms. Okay, so let me go ahead and put the test leads on the used fuel injector and see what we get. Okay, so I got the used or the old fuel injector connected, and when I touch this right here, alright, so that's making contact. This one's connected already. You can see it's clamped on, and we have nothing. And I've double and triple checked it. I even moved my connections over here at the injector, tried multiple times, and still nothing. We have open. This is a bad fuel injector, and that explains why when it's cold, it doesn't work. As you can see, I'm using this bungee tied up to the hood right here to kind of prop up the intake manifold, and it gives me just the space that I need. Okay, so I got the fuel rail bolted down. The injector is plugged in, and everything's pretty much good to go. What I'm going to do now, before I start putting all this together, I'm going to go ahead and turn the key and let the fuel pump build up some pressure. I want to make sure I don't have any leaks at any of these fuel injectors before I start putting all of this together. So far everything looks good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and finish putting all of this back together. I think I have everything put back together. I got the scope connected. So this is going to be the very first startup. Hopefully it starts up. Let's find out. Alright, it started up. It sounds good. I don't hear any misfires. Oh, wrong button. Okay, so here we go. Got the scope all set up. And you can see from a cold start, everything's completely cold. Just turned it on. I'm not BSing you, okay? There we go, everything's working. Fuel injector. All of the injectors. And the one, oh, I didn't mention this, but I'm tied into the same exact wire right there, which is injector number 4. That's a fix. The engine sounds very healthy on a cold startup. It sounds perfect. I'm really happy. This tells me there's no vacuum leaks. Fuel injector is working as it should. And I could button this part up. Now let me go ahead and turn off the engine before I die in here, because I got the garage door closed. Since I got a video going on this Ford Escape already, I might as well show you what else I'm doing on it. So sometimes the car just doesn't want to start, okay? And before it was just a random, very intermittent thing, and it was just once in a while, okay? But the owner said it's starting to get worse. More times he's starting to stay here and just kind of play with the key and finally get the car to start. He said it's getting annoying and it's starting to happen more and more often. So what's super common on these Ford Escapes is the ignition switch housing to go bad. So that would be this part right here. And we have a OEM Ford part to replace it with. And whenever you replace this, you want to make sure you replace the shear bolt. So here you can see I got another OEM part right here. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get this part installed. It's not too bad of a job. It just, it's not the worst thing, honestly. So let's just go ahead and knock this out. But let's try it right now. I got the key. Let's see if it'll start the first time. Look at that. You saw that? It started on the second try. Now it doesn't want to start at all. But you see, let's see if we can get to act up. Okay, it won't start, so I'm just gonna apply like pressure to it, and there it goes, it starts up. Okay, so those are the symptoms of this piece going bad right here. So replacing this should fix all of this mess that's going on, and having to fiddle with the key just to get the car to turn on. What I think is the worst part of this entire job is getting this piece off. It's pretty easy, okay? It's getting the airbag off. It's a nightmare. Every time I do this, I could easily spend like 45-50 minutes just trying to get the airbag off. And I know for some people it's quick and you're like, oh, that's a ton of time. I know. It's supposed to be simple. There's a little tiny hole right there, you're supposed to put something in there like this and push up on the little spring, and it's supposed to release the airbag. It just doesn't work, or it's just not as easy as it looks. Okay, so hopefully I get lucky on this one and it doesn't eat up a ton of time, but typically removing the airbag gives me hell. Okay, so I'm not looking forward to trying to get this off. Okay, so as you can see, I got the airbag off, but I didn't remove it the way it's intended to be removed, with the little screw or with the little hole back here like I was mentioning. To me, that stuff, it just doesn't work for me no matter how many times I tried it. So the way I removed it right now is way faster. I did this in a fraction of the time that it took me the very first time I ever did this job, when I was trying to do the method of putting a tool inside of here. So let me show you a little bit what that looks like. So this is your tool, right? This is about the biggest tool you could fit inside of this tiny little hole. So the whole idea is to come inside of this hole, and you want to press on this spring right here. But look at this. There's not a lot of surface area on the size of the tool that you can fit in here. So even right now, with me being able to see what I'm doing, it's hard, because it's like, you know, it's trying to walk, like you're trying to walk on a tightrope. You know, it's difficult. The tool keeps slipping off. Now imagine trying to do this without being able to see anything, because it would be covered up by the airbag. It's complicated. Trust me, it's going to eat up a ton of your time, and it's just going to get you super frustrated. So the way that I found to do this is, number one, make sure your battery's disconnected. Don't touch any of this stuff with the battery connected up front. So number two, you see how I got the steering wheel turned sideways? That's what I do, is I turn the steering wheel sideways, and then this back panel right here actually pops off. You see it, how it pops off like that? And you just kind of work it all the way around, and eventually it's going to pop off. Not a lot, but it's going to give you enough slack. Okay, once you get this back panel popped off, grab a small 90-degree angle pick like this, and well, let me show you from the top. So these are the springs. These are the springs that are holding in the airbag. You have one right here, okay? You have another right here holding in this one, and then the final one is down here in the center. We're starting up here, all right? So once you pull this panel back, you're gonna come in here with your little pick, and I'm trying to get this right angle for you guys. You're gonna come in here, you're gonna grab that spring and pull back on it just like that. See me pulling the spring? Pull this spring, and this end of the airbag is gonna pop out. And then same thing over here. You come over here, you pull this spring. It's hard to show you guys, my hand in the way. Basically, you're gonna come in here, pull this spring, right? And then this side of the airbag is gonna pop out. So at this point, you're gonna have this one and this corner disengaged already. The only thing that's gonna be holding at this point is this center piece right here. And to get that off, what I do is, once again, this panel, like I said, pull it back, okay? And then you come inside of here with your pick, and let me try to get inside of here real fast. It's really difficult with one hand. All right, so once you got your pick in here, what you want to do is turn it sideways just like that, so that way you have as much surface area as you can. And once I line it up and I know I'm directly on that spring, I'm gonna let go of it so I can show you guys. Once I get it lined up and I know it's touching that spring for sure, there's gonna be a lot of tension on it because you already have these two disengaged. So this one has more tension than it normally would. At that point, once I know I'm on the spring for sure, I just give my tool a little bump in my hand, boom, and this end pops out. And that's it. The whole airbag is out. I cannot tell you how much faster this is for me, all right? Because trying this method that they want you to use, to me, it's a nightmare. You could spend a lot of time here and become extremely frustrated with this. All right, so once you get the airbag out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and remove this center bolt, which is a T50. Ideally, you want to use a impact gun for this. See how easy that comes off? Now the trick here is you're supposed to use a steering wheel puller, which would thread into both of these holes right here, and then you press off of the center bolt. But an easy way to get around this is to put the bolt back in it and just kind of leave it loose. All right, but basically you just want to rock back and forth on the steering wheel, holding it in two places, and it will come off. And there it goes. See, it broke loose. You don't gotta go all gorilla on this thing, okay? You don't gotta go crazy bashing it, hitting it hard, trying to break anything. Just give it some nice firm wobbles back and forth and it comes off. Now we could go ahead and remove the bolt and unplug whatever we have to unplug to get the steering wheel out of here. Alright, so at this point I've straightened out the steering wheel. You can see I got it facing upright, I guess. Sure, you could go ahead and mark the steering wheel in correlation to the shaft, but honestly this thing is kind of keyed, so it can only really, I mean, there's like, I don't know, there's probably two ways it could go on. Either way, you know, the shaft has a little line right there. If you look up closely, see there's a line on it, and right above it there's a flat spot in the splines right there that kind of lines up with that. So you can mark it if you want, but really it's kind of hard to mess this up. Okay, so I removed the screws for the clock spring and try not to rotate this. Just take it off directly how it sits. Again, don't rotate it, just kind of set it aside, and remove the screws for this piece as well, which I already did, so it should pop off. And I've already unplugged everything from the back of it. There goes the wire harness just hanging right there. Let's put this aside for now. And the only thing that's holding this on now is this one bolt right here, but you can see it has no head on it, and that's this bolt that we bought right here. Okay, so once it's torqued down to spec, it's actually designed for the head of it to just shear right off. Okay, so it's kind of like a tamper proof bolt. It's a one-time use. You install it, and in order to remove it, you grab like a cutoff wheel and you cut a slot in it, and it lets you use like a flathead screwdriver to remove it. So I hope that makes sense. Of course, you want to try to protect all of this, you know, with some blankets or towels, whatever you have, you know, to try not to get any sparks on the interior of the car. So I've gone ahead and cut a slot in this one. It's hard to tell, but you can see it right there. Just came in here with the Dremel, just like that, cut a slot in it, and then came in here with a flathead screwdriver and simply unscrewed it. Well, not simply, it's under pretty tight, but you get the idea. Then you can unscrew the bolt, and this whole piece is ready to come off. In order to remove your cylinder, you have to use the original key, of course. You put the key in it, and you're going to turn it about 3/4 of the way, like you're about to start the car. And then from the top right here, there's going to be an access hole, and you come in here with a pick, and it's going to let you push down on this little button right here. But you can only access or push down on this button with the key in the correct position. So you absolutely need the key in order to do this. So at this point, we got the piece off, and it's just a matter of put the cylinder in the new piece, put it on the car, put the new bolt on it, and start to put everything back together. Alright, so I got the new piece in. Everything is lined up nicely. There's only really one way this piece is going to fit on here. If it's not lined up correctly, you're not going to be able to close this and get it to like latch on to this piece. So it's nice and solid now. The bolt got just a tiny little dab of thread locker on it, and now it's just simply go ahead and tighten it until this bolt breaks off. And I can already feel it breaking off. There it goes. You can see the head snaps right off of it, and that piece would stay inside of there, and it's torqued down. That's as far as it allows you to torque it. At that point, just start putting everything back together. Alright, so I got everything put back together for the most part, minus the two panels that go right here. That's not a big deal, you could do that afterwards. I've reconnected the battery, and let's put the key in and try to start it. As long as the airbag doesn't hit you in the face, I think you're alright. Well, that scared the hell out of me. Alright, so you can see our turn signals are working. That's a good sign. The airbag has not hit us in the face yet, so it should start the very first turn. Nice. Let's try it again. And I noticed the key comes out very easy too, even though it shouldn't. I don't know, maybe it's just a placebo effect because it's still the same ignition cylinder, so that should not make a difference. But let's try it again to start it, and go. Try it 2 more times. So we saw how often it was happening before, almost every single time, right? Alright, 1 more time. Alright. Alright, so I got the rear shocks installed on this Ford Escape. Same thing on both sides. We got our new sway bar end links and sway bar bushings. And this thing is nice and solid now. No more clunking around, so I'm sure the owner is going to be happy with it. A lot of work got done on this Ford Escape. But that's it for this one. So I appreciate you guys watching and coming along with this this little job I had going on here. So if you can, hit that thumbs up button, and thanks for watching. Car's driving good, no misfires. The rear end is nice and quiet. There's no clunking coming from back there. So hey, I'm happy with it, so I'm sure the owner will be happy with it.